Hey everyone, hope you are doing well. This is going to be just a short little video to talk about the cardiovascular system, specifically looking at the heart. Apologize for my squeaky chair, and if I come in and out of the video frame here, I'm trying to sync the video up to where I can not have to move the heart a whole lot. So you're going to be diving into the cardiovascular module, and there's a lot of content in the cardiovascular module. There's 3 weeks of work going from looking at the anatomy of the cardiovascular system in the body to the physiology, looking at the structures of the heart, blood vessels, all the way to the electrical impulses and how cardiac, late afternoon right now, and the conductile cells work together to cause the heart to contract. I'll try not to yawn a whole lot because I'll make you all start yawning. And some of you might be watching this at 11 o'clock at night, so you're already tired and your kids are at home doing schoolwork and working and all those things. So I also want you to know I just appreciate you, appreciate your work you're doing. It's tough times out there. It's weird. It's stressful. But you're here, you're working hard, you're focused on your class, and you're going to be successful. You're going to do well in this class, you're going to be successful, and you're going to achieve the goals you want to achieve. And I'm just here to help you do that. So let's talk about the heart. What is cool about the heart and unique about the heart? First off, I love the cardiovascular system. It's probably my favorite system to teach. It's vitally important, as we know all systems are, but it has such unique, intricate functions, and the heart is so amazing. And as a exercise physiologist at heart, no pun intended, the heart is vitally important. So let's look at this thing. I'll grab my lovely pointer here. By pointer, I mean pen. So when we look at the heart, right, I'll lift this. I'm going to lift it off the stand here. So when we look at the heart, we have the general structure here. Now, a heart sits in our body right about in here, okay? And this would be a massive heart in my body. If my heart is this big, I could have problems, but it's not that far off. It's just a little big, okay? Now, when we look at the heart, you have the apex of your heart, okay? The apex of your heart is down here, and it's going to point down to the left of your body. Now, realize when you're looking at this, it looks like the right side because of your view, but I'm pointing to the left of my body. So always think of the anatomical position. Okay, so it points to the left. Now, down here at the bottom, if we take the front off this heart, it's stuck here. Right, you have your ventricles. Oh, my camera kind of adjusted here. So you have your ventricles. Okay. You have your right and left ventricles. Notice the right ventricle is a lot smaller than the left ventricle. Okay, why is that? Well, the right ventricle pumps blood to the lungs. The left ventricle pumps blood to the body. The lungs don't have a lot of pressure pushing back against the heart. So the right side doesn't have to be super strong, and it doesn't have to be super pressurized. There is some pressure in there. We have to have some pressure, but it isn't super pressurized. The left side, on the other hand, is pushing against the entire system in the body, right? It's pushing against all the blood in the body. So we have peripheral resistance, that pressure that pushes back against the heart. The heart has to overcome that and push against it to get the blood out. So that's why we have to have blood pressure that exceeds that it's pushing against in order to send blood through our body. Now, by the time blood goes down, goes through capillaries, and starts to work its way back in the veins, it loses a lot of pressure. Veins don't have much pressure. That's why we take blood pressure in our arteries, okay? So our left ventricle pumps against the body, and it has a thick layer of myocardium, that's this muscle tissue, and a nice large chamber. You'll also notice these white things here. These are valves, okay? I'm not going to go through every detail in here, but these valves, you have this one between the atria and the ventricles, and you have this one between up in here. You can see it right back in there. That's a semilunar valve between the aorta and the left ventricle. Okay, these valves are highly important because they shut when pressures change and they don't let blood move backwards, right? We don't want blood moving backwards. Let's say this valve right here, this one between the atria and the left ventricle, has a problem and it's leakage, and so blood leaks back up. It can then leak back into the lungs and cause all sorts of problems. Okay, that can lead to heart failure and other things. So we don't want problems like that. Okay, so these valves actually shut. So what happens is, if blood is filling into my heart, okay, from my lungs, it goes to my lungs from the right side of the heart, and then it comes back into the left side of my heart, and it comes back in through these pulmonary veins. Okay, veins always bring blood back to the heart. Arteries take blood away. So it brings it back through these veins and dumps it back in, goes down in here. Once it fills and the pressure builds in here, these valves actually, these leaflets in the valves get pushed back up and shut. Okay, they're a one-way door. Once it fills, the pressure builds, they recoil back up. Now blood can't go back in. Okay, all right. What happens then? A contraction occurs and the blood gets ejected out through the aorta. Now pressure drops in here, and as pressure drops in here and blood refills back in here again, pressure increases and opens that valve again, and we refill. Okay, so pressures are highly important, and when you get into the cardiovascular module, you're going to have to do some pressure volume diagrams. Okay, and what it is it's a loop that looks at the relationship between volume and pressure. Okay, and it talks about how when we're increasing the pressure in this ventricle, the blood volume's increasing. Okay, now that's different than the relationship with space, right? If I increase the space of something, if I make it bigger, my pressure goes down. But our heart can only expand so much. So it stretches, okay, and then it recoils, but we aren't able to shove pressure down by making it bigger. Okay, so as blood comes into the heart, it will actually stretch, recoil back up, and shove all that blood out. Okay, you're also going to do some assignments to look at EKGs. Okay, and you'll look at how the electrical flow goes down the heart and extends back up and causes our heart to contract. You'll learn about cardiac cells versus contractile conductive cells. You'll learn about these different blood vessels on top. This big red one here is our biggest artery. It's called the aorta. This is your aortic arch. These three blood vessels right here, okay, these feed blood to your arms and your neck and your brain and your face, okay? This one goes to the right side and branches, and these two go to the left side, okay? This first one right here in the middle here, this first one of these two is the carotid. When you hear about common carotid or carotid, when people talk about that, that's the carotid. This right here will branch into the carotid. And this is the subclavian. Subclavian ends up going to the arm and runs down and becomes brachial and a variety of other tons of arteries that go to your arm. Okay, the purple one on the right here, this is your vena cava, specifically the superior. So it empties blood back from the jugular veins into the heart. So this is where blood returns. Blood returning to the heart is oxygen poor. Blood leaving the heart to the body is oxygen rich. Okay. Now, we do send oxygen poor blood to the lungs and bring back oxygen rich, but in terms of coming from the body, that's what veins and arteries carry. There's just a slight difference when we refer to the lungs, okay? The other thing to think about before you jump into the cardiovascular unit is the fact that the heart's really two pumps in one, okay? You have a pulmonary pump, which is the right side, and you have a systemic pump, which is the left side. Pulmonary pump goes to the lungs, and it is low pressure and gets oxygen and gets rid of CO2, okay? The left side gets that oxygen-rich blood from the lungs, and it is your systemic pump, and it pumps it to the body, okay? Highly important, all right? Make sure you know the structure of the heart, okay? Understand how blood flows through, how the electrical flow works. Make sure you understand the valves in terms of how valves and pressure work, and I have some activities for you online to do that. The other thing is understand the difference between arteries and veins. Okay, arteries have a thick muscle wall in the middle. Okay, it's called smooth muscle, and it's the middle layer of arteries. Okay, and it's a lot thicker and stronger because it has to withstand the pressure and stretching of arteries. Veins, on the other hand, to have a thinner smooth muscle wall because they don't deal as much with, one, with vasomotion, and two, with pressure. Okay. Now, what is vasomotion? Vasomotion is when blood vessels vasodilate or vasoconstrict. Arteries are the main areas that happens, and veins and venules don't do it as much. Okay, and they have less smooth muscle. All right, when you look at a cadaver, which you won't in this class online, but in person, you can actually see the structural difference up close. Arteries in a dead person in a cadaver that's been preserved hold their structure. Their wall actually holds well, and you can still see it look like a tube. On the other side, veins lay flat like a pancake inside of a cadaver. You actually have to lift up the sidewall to look inside of them because they just don't have enough smooth muscle to maintain that structure. Okay. The other thing to think about is blood vessels. Okay, you're going to be dealing with a case study about Uncle Jake, and Uncle Jake is having some heart issues, it looks like. Okay, and so you're going to have to be talking about heart attacks and different things. So pay attention to that, and pay attention to where your coronary arteries are and how they feed the heart. Understand that the blood flowing through the heart itself does not support the tissues. We have to send them out via the coronary arteries to the tissues to feed that. So when someone has a myocardial infarction or a heart attack, there is a blockage in one of these blood vessels around the tissue of the heart. Okay, and your left AV artery, okay, and it's called the anterior ventricular artery. So it's the left anterior ventricular artery and descending artery. It goes down this front side. Is one of the most common sites of heart attack blockage, okay, or blockage that causes a heart attack is the way I should say it. Okay, it's one of the most common, the left anterior descending artery, one of the most common arteries that is blocked, okay, and leads to heart attacks. Okay, so pay attention to the structure of this heart, pay attention to blood vessels, to the structures that determine pressure and how the blood is pumped through and how the cells contract to pump it through. If you can do those things, you're going to be sitting really well in this module. I hope this was somewhat just kind of a nice check-in so you can see who I am again. I'm here. You can take a look at a heart, see some of the structures. I hope to be putting a few more of these together. I'll make another video about EKGs and talk about what's going on there and why those are important. But make sure you understand this. This is highly important. Understand the blood that's flowing through. The other thing you should also think about before I shut this off is cardiac output. How much blood is pumped out in liters per minute and the things that impact that, okay? And the equation for cardiac output is stroke volume times heart rate. So stroke volume is how much blood is pumped out per beat, and heart rate is how many beats per minute. There are a lot of things that impact heart rate, and there are a lot of things that impact stroke volume. And those are going to be important characteristics and factors to think about as you go through the case studies and the content in cardiovascular as well. All right, have a wonderful rest of your day. Hope you're enjoying this course. As always, reach out to me via text or email or Zoom, and take care. Talk to you later. Bye.